Hello, my name is Allison Duvall, and today I'm going to be going over my findings regarding the relationship between social media usage and self-compassion. Humans are fundamentally programmed to compare themselves to one another, and social media makes all of this too easy. It allows for individuals to construct the most perfect version of themselves, providing details about their life and their experiences through photos and status updates. These sites also allow for them to maintain relationships, meet new people, and plan events. Social networking sites have given people the ability to meet their social needs without ever leaving their home. But they have also created an environment where people base their feelings of success on the amount of likes they get or how they appear to others online. Face-to-face interactions, on the other hand, don't allow for the same kind of meticulous presentation and thus don't result in the same kind of self-evaluation and judgment. Prior research has shown that people tend to believe that others have better lives than they do, and many individuals who use social networking sites consistently begin to compare their offline self to the idealized online version of others, which can be detrimental to their mental well-being and self-esteem. Self-esteem refers to an individual's positive or negative evaluation of the self. Dr. Kristen Neff, in her research over self-compassion, self-esteem, and well-being, found that although self-esteem and self-compassion are similar in nature, they're two separate constructs, and each of these have their own benefits and drawbacks. Specifically, self-esteem is problematic to mental well-being because it creates a need for individuals to feel superior in order to feel good about themselves. This can cause people to exaggerate about themselves in order to try to maintain their self-esteem. Self-esteem, also being contingent on certain outcomes, can lead to lowered self-esteem when those outcomes aren't as expected. Self-esteem can also lead to narcissism, self-absorption, and lack of care or concern toward others. This is a big difference between self-esteem and self-compassion, in which individuals inherently know that their pitfalls and inadequacies are just part of the human experience. Self-compassion, as Neff shows, is derived from Buddhist psychology and entails three concepts. These concepts are self-kindness versus self-judgment, feelings of common humanity versus isolation, and mindfulness versus over-identification. According to De Souza and Hutt, self-compassion is essentially compassion placed in the person themselves, and this is not self-pity, but rather an attitude which allows oneself to be in touch with their own suffering. Self-compassion emphasizes a non-judgmental attitude toward the self and soothes the self in times of shame and discomfort, according to Liz and Ertrel. These feelings of love and compassion toward the self are non-contingent and unconditional, which is very different from that of self-esteem. Increased self-compassion has been linked to lower depression, stress, and anxiety. However, low self-compassion can be just as detrimental as low self-esteem, resulting in mental suffering, anxiety, anger, and embarrassment. Now, we all know that social media usage has grown over the past decade to about 1/3 of the world's population. As new technologies have emerged, this rise in social media usage has been detrimental to mental well-being and health, and is shown to have a negative correlation with trait self-esteem. Although there is a magnitude of research over social media usage and self-esteem, there's a lack of research regarding the relationship between social media usage and self-compassion. The hypothesis for the current study was that there would be a negative correlation between social media usage and self-compassion, or that is to say that as social media usage went up, self-compassion would decrease. There was a total of 60 participants in the study, and of these 60 participants, 53 met the requirement of being enrolled in college courses. Of the eligible participants, there were 45 females, or 85%, and 8 males, or 15%. The participants provided consent and completed an online survey about their time on social networking sites, answering Likert-style questions provided by the Social Networking Time Use Scale by Olafati, and their level of self-compassion, answering Likert-style questions from the Self-Compassion Scale by Dr. Kristen Neff. Looking at Table 1, we can see that the mean self-compassion score was fairly moderate, with a mean score of 2.69. As scores ranged from 1 to 5, with a score of 1 to 2.5 representing a low self-compassion score, a score of 2.5 to 3.5 representing a moderate score, and 3.5 to 5 representing a high score. The mean score for the social networking time use scale was also found to be average with a mean of 9.91. The scores from the scale range from 5 to 23, with a score ranging from 5 to 9 representing low use of social networking sites, 10 to 14 representing average social network site usage, 15 to 19 representing high social network site usage, and a score of over 19 representing extremely high social networking site usage. To determine if there was a correlation between the two variables, I performed a two-tailed Pearson-R correlation. Based on the sample, there was a significant correlation between social media usage and self-compassion. Again, looking to Table 1, you can see that there was a significant negative correlation of negative 0.277 at the 0.05 level, indicating that as social media usage increased, self-compassion scores decreased. This study aimed to further examine the correlation between social media usage and self-compassion in college students in order to better understand not only social media's impact on individuals' mental well-being, but the benefits of self-compassion. The results showed a significant correlation with social media usage and self-compassion, which shows a need for further testing regarding gender. Something interesting to note are the differences in gender regarding self-compassion. Previous research conducted by Dr. Krista Neff found that self-compassion scores were lower in females. Age differences are another interesting factor in regards to self-compassion, as self-compassion tends to increase as individuals grow older. The difference between gender in this study are still unclear as there were not enough male participants, so further research is still needed to see if the current study's findings are accurate with an equal sample of males and females. Another possible limitation to this study was that the social networking time use scale didn't measure what activities individuals were participating in, but only when they were using social networking sites. This could be a limitation as previous research has shown that specific activities using social media can be more detrimental than others. To conclude, a large body of research has shown that high levels of self-compassion are positively associated with psychological health and well-being. This is why it's important to realize and understand social media's impact on us and our ability to be compassionate towards ourselves. Self-compassion creates an environment in which individuals gain effective interpersonal problem-solving behaviors, higher levels of empathy, and greater ability to take perspective. All of these things are important for people to better deal with the stress and personal suffering, whether from personal failures or environmental factors. As social media grows and technologies become more advanced, it's important to recognize and understand the impact it has on our mental well-being. While understanding the impact is important, even more so is cultivating an attitude of self-compassion which has the potential to protect individuals against the negative effects of living in such an objectifying and negative environment. Thank you.